Scales and Pages. Written by Nikolai Weiskopf. Read for you by Adam R. Watson.
Story 7. The Shelving Begins. Volstus tried to knock gently on the door, but Archaeus' deception and Lensara's taunts echoed in their mind. Their fists tightened, leaving several scaled knuckle dents in the steel. "Lensara, stop, or we'll bury you," Sarah shouted. Volstus forced themselves to take a calming breath and stepped back from the door. "She is bound and silenced by my chains. Please, let me out," they asked. The door opened, Sarah's students pulling and pushing on both sides. A few stared open-mouthed at the damage. "What convinced you?" Volstus asked, stepping into the fading sunlight, ignoring the gawking youths. "Before you arrived, I'd spent hours trying to learn something from her. In between pitiful attempts to possess me, break my mind, or tear apart my internal magics, I noticed she never once said, 'Please,'" Sarah explained, a wicked grin on her face. One of the oldest and most powerful magic words," Volstus added, and smiled back with all their teeth. "Well, amusing etiquette aside, is she to be our guest or yours?" Sarah asked, while the mausoleum door slammed shut. "I need time to decide. May I stay in a guest room?" Volstus asked. "Of course," Sarah answered and turned. A dragon and all her students followed along. Hours into the night, they couldn't hear students anywhere near their room. Without hesitation, Volstus locked the windows and doors. A quick thought added magical locks of air and lightning to them. When they'd run out of excuses, they turned to the gemstone library, until they found a facet they dreaded seeing. Autobiographies. A clawed thumb on the facet. One thought. "By blood and magic, we are one." In a single breath, their flesh became magic. On the second breath, they were inside the library. Volstus took a calming breath and slowly opened their eyes to their crystalline blue floors and aisles. Silver witchlights illuminated the carnage. Torn pages, snapped spines, showers of dried glue ripped from folds. Threads of all kinds lay among the piles. Plain cotton pieces, woven gold bits, shelves overflowing and barren side by side. They fought the urge to flee, counting their breaths and holding back tears. The last thing any book needed was an excuse to grow mold. Looking down, they noticed a book whose scars were not their fault. Volstus bent, keeping wings and tail tucked as much as possible. On top of countless others was a pitted and scuffed dark brown leather cover with knife-cut goblin letters that read, "Ranger Hoshi." The name brought Volstus happier memories. The bloody night they'd met and slaughtered poachers. How they transitioned to a smaller dragon shape, spitting and shaking hands to travel together. Clipped conversations as they glided silently, while Hoshi rushed across the forest floor. Together they'd learned and lived until Hoshi had consented to Volstus transitioning into a goblin body. They'd parted after 10 years, only meeting again at Hoshi's funeral, beneath her favorite tree. Afterwards, her family had given Volstus the book, and they'd read their friend's life many times. Volstus thought themselves to the correct place, becoming light and magic until they were solid before the barren bookshelf. They placed Hoshi's book on the blue shelf, whispered an apology, and turned to continue the work. They started under their friend's book, and stacked by damage. Cosmetic and minor were easy. The ones in pieces they moved to their bookbinding facet. Unable to tell time inside the gemstone library, Faustus didn't stop until they had a clear circle of blue floor. Joy and hope lasted until they looked beyond their stacks, at the endless mess waiting for them, demanding they do more. They couldn't stop the tears this time, and brought up their clawed hands to catch them, all while shame and despair shouted inside their mind. Your fault. Couldn't calm down. Just had to make them safe. Arceus is a thief. You're an idiot. Think you can save them all? How many did you break? Whose stories did you lose? Volstus! Gruffbox shouted near their ear, startling the dragon. What? Why? They leaped up, claws out, but the tree folk had flashed away to the top of a shelf. Dragon boss lost in thought? Gruffbox asked, glancing at the pitifully small island of order amidst an ocean of chaos. Yes, please, don't do that again. I wouldn't forgive myself if I harmed you, Faustus answered. Claw me down. I take root. Folk hard to kill, Gruffbox said, waggling his wooden eyebrows. At any other time, Faustus would have asked 1,000 questions. This time they slid and slumped on the floor, doing their best to look nowhere. From the corner of their vision, green flashed, and Gruffbark approached until his rooty toes stood in Faustus's downcast sight. Dragon clean now? Gruffbark asked. Started. Not sure I can keep going, Faustus answered. It's so much, and I want it all done, and I know I can, but I keep seeing all the damage, and I just... They opened their arms, gesturing through the panic, until they looked up at the sloping cut ceiling of the facet. More tears streamed down their scaly cheeks. They captured them with a simple water spell and moved them out of the library. Another green flash, and Gruffbark's red, mossy head and green crystal eyes were staring down at them from the shelf above. You stuck in flood, Gruffbark said. Faustus blinked until their tears stopped. Explain, please? They asked. Flood move everything. Root, stone, tree, river. Flood make mess, yes? Give tree folk much work. Tribe work together. Work done faster. Gruffbark answered and let out a bird whistle. Green flashes filled the facet. After Volstus finished blinking away the spots in their vision, they could see everyone from Cloud Chaser to older tree folk had come. Dragon lead. Tribe follow, Gruffbark ordered, and the entire tribe let out grunts of acknowledgement. For a moment, overwhelming uncertainty and crushing guilt lifted off Faustus's mind. Thank you, they said, and started giving directions. In less than an hour, the tree folk were working in teams, each one focused on types of damage and stacking them where Faustus started. Slowly, Hoshi's book gained neighbors. A soldier's last will and testament Faustus helped draft. An artisan's journal they'd promised to share with fellow artists. The urge to float overhead and draconically fuss over every detail flared when the tree folk dropped or misshelved a book, until Cloud Chaser and their team of saplings rounded a corner carrying a book on their backs. Faustus bent to pick it up. Its deerskin cover was soft with age and had no title. Please read for us, all of them pleaded, their crystal eyes fixed on Faustus hopefully. They opened it with the backs of their claws to the first page of rough-cut parchment. There, in charcoal ink, they found the title and author. Adventures of a Raindrop, by Druid Moldsome, they read aloud. And all the saplings cheered, sitting where they pleased before Faustus had a chance to say anything.
Boss brain busy. Saplings safe. Good idea.
Gruffbark answered on their behalf, and flashed away before they could protest. So they slid down until they sat cross-legged and read. With the sun's help, Percy floated to the sky, where they floated from cloud to cloud and shared their many adventures, and what they hoped they could see when the next storm came. Faustus finished, smiling at the words and the absolute silence from the saplings. Does Druid Maltsum write more? Cloud Chaser asked, shattering the silence as all the still-awake saplings called for more. Yes, he does. If you find them, I will read more, Faustus promised. The saplings cheered until Cloud Chaser whistled for them to follow over the bookish terrain. Gruffbark flashed onto a nearby bookshelf, a large acorn cap in his hands.
So, what Dragon Boss plan?
Gruffbark asked, and sipped from the cap. Not sure. I don't want to waste time flying everywhere and finding nothing, but I don't trust Linsara, they explained, resting their head on the shelf edge behind them.
Listen first. Trust. Never. Fly where feels right,
Gruffbark said, smacking his lips as he finished the drink. Faustus smiled at the crisp apple juice aroma joining the sense of aged paper and ink. And if it feels right to go somewhere dangerous? They asked, and watched Gruffbark for a reaction.
Safety pass like seasons. Magic book rock like winter cave, but with dragon, not bear. No place safer. Only ask, give tribe warning, Gruffbark answered, and petted the shelf he sat on.
I will. And thank you for everything, Faustus said, and thought themselves back to their room. They dispelled their locks and leaped out the window, flapping until they were soaring to the alley mausoleum. Faustus landed without cracking the cobbles. 2 black-robed teachers raised their arms against the dust they'd disturbed. The cool stone of the road beneath their clawed feet comforted them as they nodded towards the steel door. The black robes silently turned and opened the door.
We thank you for listening to this story. Creating the dragons, books, and magic and shenanigans has been a joy. Find more of Nikolai's stories and Adam's content in the links enclosed. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents either are the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced in any form or by an electronic or mechanical means, including information storage and retrieval systems, without permission in writing from the publisher, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages in a review. No generative artificial intelligence, AI, was used in the writing of this work. The author and narrator expressly prohibit any entity from using this publication for purposes of training AI technologies to generate text, audio, video, including without limitation technologies that are capable of generating works in the same style or genre as this publication. The author reserves all rights to license uses of this work for generative AI training and development of machine learning language models.